the 5th year of my engagement with Pablo Kim. He secretly married a female college student. By the time I arrived, they were passionately kissing, encouraged by the crowd. When Pablo saw me, he raised an eyebrow slightly. This little girl just wants a wedding. Don't worry. I haven't registered for marriage with her. I didn't cry or make a scene. I simply turned and left. He assumed I was just sulking, until a young heir from a wealthy family posted our marriage certificate. Ignoring the heavy rain, Pablo came banging on my door. I opened it, still blushing with the remnants of embarrassment on my face. Don't worry. I just registered the marriage. We haven't actually gotten married, I said. Marcel, wearing nothing but a towel around his waist, came down from upstairs and put his arm around my waist. So, I don't have a title? Chapter 1. A lively wedding ceremony. The guests below shouted for the newlyweds to kiss. The bride in her wedding dress blushed as Pablo held her by the back of her neck, deepening the kiss. I stared absent-mindedly at the two of them kissing passionately on stage. Pablo's good friend turned and saw me, calling out in a panic, "Sis-in-law." In an instant, the lively atmosphere turned dead silent. I walked toward Pablo. The young girl clumsily tried to hide behind him. Pablo didn't show any sign of embarrassment at being caught by his fiancé. He mockingly held the girl in his arms and raised an eyebrow. Melissa kept demanding to marry me. But don't worry. We haven't registered the marriage. Mrs. Kim will only ever be you. Pablo and I had grown up together, childhood sweethearts. After graduation, we got engaged under the arrangement of our families. He was well known in our social circle for being a playboy, constantly changing girlfriends, causing me endless embarrassment. I smiled faintly. From my bag, I took out a square brocade box. This is the bracelet passed down to the daughter-in-law of the Kim family. I'm returning it to you. Pablo took it and started toying with it, giving a mocking laugh. So, you're bringing out the bracelet just to make me break up with her? I didn't miss the disbelief in his eyes. Pablo, from now on, our engagement is null and void. From now on, you live your life, and I'll live mine. Pablo's face instantly changed color. Chloe, say that again. His good friend saw things were about to escalate and quickly stepped in. Sis-in-law, calm down. This wedding doesn't count. Pablo is just playing around. The real marriage will be with you. After witnessing my fiancé marry another woman in such a grand show, I didn't cry or make a scene. I simply turned around and left. Pablo, go after her, his friend urged. Pablo was quite confident. What's there to chase? This isn't the first time. She'll come back in a few days. You've never had a scene this big before. Even women can't stand seeing their loved ones marry someone else. I suggest you go check on her. Pablo glanced at the door outside, his dark eyes narrowing. Melissa suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Can I see the bracelet? After leaving the wedding, I called my best friend Helen and arranged to meet at a bar. When she arrived, she saw 2 empty wine bottles and immediately understood. What's going on? Did you argue with Pablo again? Did he get a celebrity or a college student this time? Hearing the name, my heart ached like a needle prick. He got married today. After hearing the full story, Helen grabbed the wine bottle, ready to smash it over that scumbag's head. You should have dumped him long ago. I've made a group for you, full of the best guys in our circle. Take your time to choose. My phone suddenly started buzzing nonstop. I glanced at it. In less than a minute, over 30 people added me. I'm going to the bathroom. In the corridor, a man stood with his back against the wall, dressed in a suit that seemed out of place here, with a few buttons on his shirt collar casually undone. He was smoking, looking somewhat unapproachable. He must have sensed my gaze, as he frowned and looked over. Marcel? What's he doing here? I walked over and smiled faintly. Marcel, can I borrow a cigarette? He raised an eyebrow. Aren't you supposed to be a good girl now that you're with Pablo? Aren't you afraid he'll find out you smoke? I didn't respond. He leaned in, speaking with a teasing tone. I heard he threw a grand wedding for another woman today. So, you and he are done now? I reached out for the cigarette and lighter. After lighting it expertly, I exhaled a puff of smoke and smiled slyly. Marcel, want to come over to my place tonight? We locked eyes. The adults had said everything that needed to be said. Marcel crushed out his cigarette and chuckled. I suddenly remembered he was notorious for not being interested in women. I was about to explain, "It's just a joke," but to my surprise, he agreed. Chapter 2. Marcel unlocked my phone with my fingerprint and, in the next moment, pinned me against the door. His large hand gripped the back of my head, and he kissed me directly. "Chloe, are you a dog? Don't bite so hard." I frowned slightly. "Can you stop talking? What you need to do right now is make me speechless." The entire night, Marcel physically demonstrated what it meant to speak without thinking. I didn't fall asleep until the morning, and just then, my phone rang. I could barely open my eyes, so I reached out, fumbling around the bed. A light chuckle came from beside me, and Marcel found my phone. When he saw it was a video call from Pablo, his face immediately darkened. He handed me the phone and pulled the blanket up to my collarbone. I answered, forcing my blurry eyes open. Pablo's indifferent voice came through. "Yesterday, didn't you say that from now on, we're strangers? How come?" Less than a day later, "You go to my mom and badmouth Melissa? Who went to your mom? Are you crazy? It's early in the morning, and you're freaking out at my place?" As soon as I spoke, I froze. My voice was hoarse and barely audible. Pablo asked in confusion, "Are you sick?" I smiled weakly. "Don't act like you don't understand." Realization crossed his face, and he suddenly raised his voice, leaning closer to the phone. "Where are you now? And who are you with?" "Mr. Kim, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Where I am and who I'm with is none of your business." Too tired to speak, I hung up the call. In the bar, Pablo's face darkened. "Pablo, did Chloe hang up on you? She can't be serious about ending the engagement, right?" "Impossible. This is just one of her usual threats. If she really wanted to break up, would she be able to let go? Look, this is just an act. She's pretending to be with another man to make you jealous, hoping you'll chase after her first. This trick's so old." Laughter filled the air. Pablo's face finally lightened up a little. The phone call had cleared my mind from sleepiness. I frowned in annoyance. Marcel noticed and said, "What's so good about Pablo? He was a player before the wedding, and after marriage, he wouldn't just stick to you. He's not good enough for you." I looked up at him in confusion. Marcel grabbed a cigarette from the bedside table, lit it, and suddenly became serious. "As for alliances, Marcel's family is no worse than the Kim family. What are you trying to say, Marcel?" Marcel glanced at me and said, "I know you've always wanted to secure the development project in the East District, but doing it on your own will be difficult. If we get married and work together, it will be much easier." By now, I was fully awake. "With your abilities, Marcel, you could take it on by yourself. Why would you want to split the profit with me?" "Maybe I don't want you to take advantage." I couldn't help but smirk, thinking for a few seconds before I extended my right hand. "Let's cooperate." 40 minutes later, Marcel and I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Looking at the red book in my hand, I felt a bit dazed. "Let's go." "Huh? Are we meeting with clients now?" Marcel reached up and patted my hair, laughing softly. "Honeymoon." We changed into our diving gear and submerged ourselves in the azure water, feeling the mystery and beauty of the sea. The beautiful coral reefs and schools of fish swam just within reach. Marcel gestured for me to follow and led me deeper into the ocean. At a certain depth, we looked up to see a starry underwater sky. When we surfaced, the staff told me my phone had been ringing continuously. I opened it to find dozens of messages. "Hello, MS. Moo. I'm the manager of DK Bridal Shop. When would you be available to try on wedding dresses?" "Hello, MS. Moo. I'm the wedding planner. What type of flowers do you like? We'll arrange for them to be airlifted." "Hello, MS. Moo. Mr. Kim has ordered a diamond ring for you at our store. When would you like to come in and try it on? The size can be adjusted if needed." Wedding dress? Flowers? Ring? The more I looked, the tighter my brows furrowed. Had my phone number been exposed? Just then, my phone rang again. I looked at the screen. It was a call from Pablo. "Hello?" He immediately started questioning me. "Where did you go? I've called you so many times, and the company said you've taken a month off. Where I go is none of your business. Don't forget, we're already broken up." Pablo didn't care and even laughed. Isn't this just because I threw a wedding for Melissa? I'll arrange one for you too. You should have received messages and calls about it. Just pick the wedding dress and the venue, and they'll arrange everything for you. I was speechless. Are you crazy? Although I couldn't see his face, I could already imagine the expression on Pablo's face when he heard my words. Chloe, you're throwing a tantrum because of the wedding. Now that I'm offering to give you a wedding, what else do you want? Haven't you had enough of your tantrums? Let me tell you, this is your only chance. If you don't want to marry, then don't get married ever. Pablo was always like this. If he offered you an out, and you didn't take it, it was always your fault. You're insane. We've broken up. Don't call me again. Marry whoever you want. Pablo continued to speak through the phone. Chloe Moo, I gave you a chance. You're the one rejecting it. Don't regret it later. Insane. Marcel finished getting dressed and asked, Pablo's call? I took a deep breath. Yeah, he thinks I'm upset because of the wedding. So, now he wants to throw me a wedding too. I really don't know how I was ever blind enough to fall for that man. Marcel smiled without saying anything. The next month, we went to Iceland to see the mysterious blue ice caves. We took a hot air balloon ride in Turkey. Chapter 3. On the day I returned to the country, Helen invited me out. I had applied several layers of concealer, but the marks on my collarbone were still visible. So, I found a silk scarf in the closet and tied it around my neck. As soon as she sat down, Helen chugged 2 glasses of wine. It's driving me crazy. Pablo's completely lost it. He's booked all the electronic billboards in Beijing, getting first-line celebrities to record birthday messages for that woman. What's her name? Melissa. And he's playing them on a loop for a whole month. Has he even thought about your feelings? I held my wine glass calmly and said, I'm married. Helen didn't believe it at first, but after seeing the marriage certificate, she said, Marcel, isn't he famous for not being interested in women? How did you manage to get him? It's not important. What matters is Pablo can't even compare. I really want to see his face when he finds out you've married Marcel. Her anger faded immediately. This calls for a proper celebration. I'm treating tonight. Helen couldn't hold her liquor well, and after a few bottles, she was already dizzy. I set my glass down. Stay here and rest. I'll go get you some tea to sober up. In the hallway, I ran into Pablo's good friend Kevin. He greeted me enthusiastically. Sister-in-law, you're here. Pablo and the others are in room 6. I'm no longer involved with Pablo. From now on, just call me by my name. Don't call me sister-in-law. Have fun. Kevin thought I was still angry. That thing Pablo did was really over the top. Give him a chance to apologize in person. We're in room 6. I'll go ahead. Sister-in-law, you can come over when you're ready. To get back to room 3, I had to pass by room 6. I heard familiar voices. I stood at the door, peering through a small crack. Pablo was lazily reclining on the sofa, several buttons of his shirt undone, and Melissa's lips were swollen. It was obvious to anyone what had happened. Pablo, I just bumped into your sister-in-law at the door. I told you she still couldn't let go of you. I didn't expect Chloe to be able to hold out for so long without contacting you. It's only been a month, and now I hear Pablo gave another woman a birthday party. Couldn't hold back and came to find you. Pablo's face was cold. Who told her to come? We've broken up. Enough already. This is the first time Chloe hasn't contacted you for so long, right? Be careful. It might blow up and you won't be able to control it. Yeah, Pablo, I think you should get this woman out of here. Otherwise, your sister-in-law will get angry again. Pablo glanced at Melissa, who was sitting next to him obediently. She lowered her head, her voice soft. Mr. Kim, today's my birthday. I touched the silk scarf tied around my neck, took it off, and pushed the door open. All eyes turned to me. The marks on my neck were too obvious, and even in the dim light of the bar, Pablo noticed immediately. He shot up, squinting. What's that on your neck? I remembered how Marcel had left marks on me the night before. Like a mad dog, I smiled. Bite marks. Pablo kicked the table beside him, his eyes full of shadows. Who did this? Chloe? You really went out to find another man behind my back. Huh? Who did it has nothing to do with you. Pablo, a decent ex should be as good as dead to me. He sneered. Chloe, if I ever contact you again, I'm a dog. Helen had drunk the sobering tea and asked, "Where did you go for so long? I almost went out to look for you." Hearing the crashing sounds coming from the next room, I said, "Handled something, otherwise there would always be flies buzzing around. Let's go." We were both drunk, so we called a ride. Not long after, the female college student who married Pablo graduated and entered the entertainment industry. After gaining some success, she hired a team to post comments under Moo Corporation's official account. Mr. Kim treats Melissa differently. He was willing to throw her a grand wedding. Forget the wedding. Mr. Kim would buy her a pink diamond without batting an eye. I suggest someone just move on. Don't cling to the title of Kim's fiancé. The one who isn't loved is the mistress. Can't you just let Mr. Kim and Melissa be happy? My assistant handed me the tablet to show me the comments. Miss Moo, should we delete the comments guiding the public opinion? Find the dirt on Melissa, leak it to the paparazzi, and inform the media companies we work with to cut off any resources for her. Got it. I'll take care of it right away. What if Mr. Kim tries to intervene? Don't worry about him. Just do what I told you. An hour later, Melissa's comment section was flooded. You're a mistress. Hiding behind the scenes is one thing, but now you're openly provoking the original woman? I went to school with Melissa. On the surface, she looks sweet, but she bullied me using her wealthy family. I have many scars on my arms from the burns she gave me. She also stole awards that should have gone to me. Turns out, she was like this even back in school. I'm Melissa's substitute in the filming crew. Unless there was a scene she had to appear in, I was the one taking her place. She barely filmed a third of her scenes. The rest were done with a stand-in or through post-production editing. I'm Melissa's assistant. There was a scene where we had to pick something up from the water. She complained about the water being too dirty and forced the staff to buy bottled water before she would even get in the water. Honestly, I've never been this tired as an assistant to a first-line star. I think the most despicable thing is Pablo, who switches girlfriends every few days. A man like him should have been gone a long time ago. Chapter 4. Pablo, aren't you going to pick up your little girlfriend's call? She's almost being roasted alive by netizens. Chloe's still the same. She holds grudges against everyone except you. Pablo didn't answer the question. Instead, he asked, has Chloe called you again these past few days? The others exchanged looks with each other. No. Are you intentionally flattering Melissa to provoke Chloe? I think you're mistaken. Your relationship with Melissa has been all over the news. Has Chloe called you? Pablo, if you really want to get back with Chloe, just apologize and give her a call. It wouldn't hurt. And if someone else beats you to it, well, you know, let her do whatever she wants. If she wants to break up, let her. I'm not losing any sleep over it. That evening, I received a message from Helen. By the way, I forgot to mention that night. There are rumors in the circle that Marcel likes men. Is he okay in that department? I couldn't help but laugh when I saw the message. Before I could reply, a shadow fell over me. Likes men? I looked up to meet Marcel's playful gaze. I was speechless. Why don't we try tonight and see if I'm capable? Before I could process what he said, he was already on top of me on the bed. I didn't know if it was the alcohol, but my cheeks felt so hot when the desire peaked. I bit down on his shoulder. Outside, the rain poured heavily, while inside, the atmosphere was filled with intimacy. The phone on the bedside table rang relentlessly. After a moment, Marcel grabbed it and glanced at the screen. It's Pablo. Want to pick it up? My vision blurred, and I shook my head. Chloe, he's like a clingy parasite. It's making me feel bad. Then answer it. I couldn't shake the feeling that I read some kind of satisfaction in his eyes. As soon as I picked up, Pablo's drunken voice came through. Chloe, I'm drunk. Come pick me up. I've been crazy these past few days, and you haven't even bothered with me. Marcel sneered. It's me. There was silence for a few seconds on the other end, and then Pablo ground out. Marcel, do you have no shame? Playing the role of the mistress? We're legally married. As for you, what the hell are you calling my wife for in the middle of the night? It's impossible. His tone dropped. Chloe, come pick me up. Let's stop fighting. I forced myself to stay calm. Pablo, I've told you clearly today, you're just my ex now. Marcel raised an eyebrow. Pleased. Before Pablo could say anything else, Marcel hung up. Meanwhile, at the bar, since the call ended, Pablo stayed in the same position. I think this time Chloe really won't come back to you. Actually, it's not entirely her fault. Pablo has been way too much these past few years. It's one thing if he's secretly dating, but every time, he has to make a huge spectacle of it. Not to mention his marriage to Melissa, the last star he gave a ring to, and the secretary who was treated so well she caused a scene at Moo Corporation. If I were Chloe, I would have left him long ago. No way I'd wait this long. All right. Enough. Just let it go. Anyway, you never really liked Chloe. Pablo said nothing, grabbing his car keys and walking out. No one could catch up with him. He's drunk. He shouldn't be driving. He's out of sight now, probably heading to find Chloe. And with Marcel there, it's going to get ugly. Chloe, I want to post on WeChat moments. At that moment, Marcel was a completely different person. So charming he could pull anyone in. I nodded absent-mindedly. Just a minute after posting, the comments started flooding in. Congrats on getting what you wanted. But does Chloe know you've been thinking about her all these years? Wow. This person looks familiar. Isn't this Mr. Kim's fiancé? What's going on? Congrats. Congrats! There were also comments like, is this a photo of P? Marcel, biting his cigarette, replied to a few messages, then went to the bathroom. I heard a frantic knock on the door downstairs. I pulled the blanket over my head, trying to pretend I hadn't heard it, but the knocking only grew louder, persistent as ever. I slipped on a black silk nightgown and went downstairs. Already guessing who it was, I grabbed our marriage certificate from the cabinet. I opened the door, my face still flushed. Pablo stood there, drenched from the rain. Chloe, I won't cause any more trouble. Let's make up. I didn't think it through at the time. I just thought it was a wedding. It wouldn't threaten your position as Mrs. Kim. So I agreed. I leaned weakly against the doorframe and showed him the marriage certificate in my hand. I've already registered. The wedding's the only thing left. When we have our wedding, we'll definitely invite Mr. Kim to come celebrate. Marcel, still wearing only a towel around his waist, came downstairs and wrapped his arm around my waist. Pablo raised his hand, throwing a punch. I considered you a brother, and yet you're after Chloe? Marcel grabbed him by the collar and returned the punch. Do you seriously not realize all the messed up things you've done? She tolerated you for 5 years, and those 5 years were just you pushing her away. The two of them went back and forth, neither willing to back down. Pablo stood in the rain, his eyes red. Chloe, I'm drunk. Can you make me a bowl of sobering soup? Marcel cursed under his breath. With a loud bang, he slammed the door shut. He pressed me against the door, and outside, Pablo continued to knock wildly. Chloe, when are we getting married? I want a title. When you got engaged. It was such a grand affair. Our wedding needs to be even better. I rose on my tiptoes and kissed the corner of his lips. Okay. Chapter 5. The next day, I received a call from Kevin. Pablo crashed his car into the guardrail when he was heading back last night. The front of the car is totaled, but luckily he didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries. He's in the hospital now. Sis-in-law. No. Chloe, could you come see him? He hasn't eaten or drunk anything, and he's refusing to cooperate with the doctors. He insists on seeing you. How many numbers do you have for him? There was a brief pause on the other end. Just this one. I hung up and blocked the number. Why was Pablo not reaching out to his parents or his current girlfriend, but instead calling me? His already married ex-fiancé? Kevin showed Pablo the black-screened phone. Pablo, Chloe really wants nothing to do with you now. She even blocked my number. Pablo stared at the chat box with his dark eyes, saying nothing. Later, when no one was around, he left the hospital. I had been busy with the East District project development recently. One day, when I returned to the apartment to pick up some documents, I was surprised to see Pablo sitting at the flower bed downstairs in the neighborhood, still wearing his hospital gown. When he saw me, he walked over cautiously and called out, Chloe. I rubbed my temples in exhaustion. What exactly do you want? Perhaps due to his illness, He looked a little weak. Marcel did it on purpose. He's had his eye on you for a long time. He wanted us to break up so he could take advantage of the situation. Do you remember when someone secretly put love letters in your backpack when we were in school? You were so angry. That person was Marcel. What? Marcel, back in school, was distant and cold. People only dared to whisper about him behind his back. No one would have the courage to ask for his contact information. And Marcel had put those love letters in my backpack? He's jealous that we got engaged. So he intentionally framed me. So, you're saying that he forced you to date those female celebrities and university students? Was he the one who forced you to have a wedding? Pablo lowered his gaze, avoiding the topic. Chloe, I caught a fever after being out in the rain last night. I feel really terrible. Can I go upstairs and have some water? No, I'm already married. I took out my phone and called Mrs. Kim. Okay, I'm coming right over. When she arrived, she slapped him angrily. What are you doing here embarrassing yourself? Look at all the things you've done. I'm too ashamed to face Chloe's parents now. Why don't you just leave? Mrs. Kim, I still have a few important meetings. I'll leave now. All right. Go ahead and do your thing. I'll take care of this troublemaker. I nodded politely and turned to leave. When I came back, I didn't expect to find Pablo still sitting there. He was still wearing that thin hospital gown, and people walking by couldn't help but stare at him. He didn't seem to care, just staring at the entrance of the neighborhood. When he saw my car drive in, he immediately stood up. I took a deep breath. I didn't want to deal with him, but when I started walking past, he stopped me and held out the brocade box I had returned to him earlier. This bracelet, I never intended to give it to anyone else. Could you take it back? I smiled faintly and opened my phone to find a picture. It was a selfie of Melissa wearing that bracelet. Pablo quickly explained. That day, after you left, she asked to try it on. So I gave it to her. She just wanted to try it on for a moment. I didn't want to waste any more words with him. I shook his hand off and went upstairs. When Marcel came back, I saw the two of them exchange a few words, and the next second, they started fighting. I rushed downstairs. Marcel, how are you any better than me? Do you dare tell Chloe everything you've done? It's because of you that I cheated, right? That East District project was just a trap you set for her. Damn you, Chloe. Don't be deceived by him. Marcel glanced at me nervously. I reached out, took his hand, and interlocked our fingers. I handed the wedding candy to Pablo. The 8th of next month is Marcel and my wedding day. You're welcome to come and celebrate. When we got back to the room, Marcel was still distracted. This was the first time I had seen him like this. He explained. Some of what Pablo said is true. I knew you wanted the East District project, so I used it as a pretext to marry you. I also made sure he was surrounded by the type of women he likes at the drinking party. I'm not as perfect as you think. I know how to manipulate people's hearts. I know exactly what kind of person Pablo is, even without you. It wouldn't be long before he got tired of that life and would suggest we live separately after marriage. Marcel was stunned. You're not angry at me? I laughed lightly. Of course I'm not angry. I married you after careful consideration. Only a little girl would think love is all that matters. I watched as the tension in Marcel's body gradually eased. Chapter 6. The East District project had successfully begun. Marcel and I were also in the middle of preparing for our wedding. One day, I was debating whether to use only chocolate for the wedding candy or to mix in a variety of other candies. Suddenly, a notification popped up. Your friend is live. Curious. I clicked on it. Pablo was kneeling on the ground in a pitiful state, his pants at the knees clearly torn. With each step, he knelt, saying, I'm sorry, Chloe. Kneel with every step. Apologize with every word. I remembered when we had just started dating. He once said, if I ever wrong you, I'll kneel all the way to the top of a mountain. Seeing such a ridiculous scene, I stayed silent for a minute. I quickly took out my phone and tried calling him, but Pablo didn't pick up. The comments flooded in rapidly. After all, moments like this, seeing the Kim family's president in such a miserable state, weren't common. Late affection is worth less than grass. What's the point of pretending now? Didn't he change girlfriends every few days before? He was so proud when he hurt her, and now he's this desperate to get her back. Just a few days ago, he was flirting with a celebrity, and now he's thinking about his ex-fiancé? Although it was Mr. Kim who cheated first. I must admit, his looks are top-notch even in the entertainment industry. My values and morals follow face. Chloe, just forgive him. Are you saying that good looks mean he's right? Well, I wish you a handsome boyfriend who cheats regularly. Chloe's husband now is way better looking than Mr. Kim. With abs and everything. Have you seen him? I imagined it. I watched the man in the video ignore my call. To really make it to the top of the mountain, kneeling every step of the way. It would take at least a whole day and night. Most importantly, it was so embarrassing. He kept repeating, "I'm sorry, Chloe." Kevin called, "Chloe, I know Pablo has wronged you, but he's still running a fever and hasn't recovered. Could you at least pity him and give him a call? You have time to call me? Why don't you bring a few people over and knock him out to take him back to the hospital?" Pablo continued to kneel with every step. He didn't care about others' opinions. He refused to take anyone's calls. He ignored everyone's advice. Even though Kevin and the others went over, there was nothing they could do. They just had to let him be. Pablo didn't make it to the top until the next night. He collapsed from exhaustion and was carried down by doctors. I was with my mom, finalizing wedding details, when I received a call from Mrs. Kim. Chloe, I'm really ashamed to ask this, but Pablo insists on seeing you. None of us can get through to him. My mom gestured for me to give her the phone. Nanju, my daughter is getting married now. It might not be convenient to go see your son, but how about this? I'll have my son-in-law go. They used to be friends, good brothers, and maybe that will work. Mrs. Kim sighed. Sigh. If Marcel goes, it will probably upset him even more. Let's forget it. It won't. Like the saying goes, use poison to fight poison. We've agreed. I'll send Marcel over right away. At the hospital, I was waiting outside the room. When Pablo saw Marcel, it was like enemies meeting, and the tension was palpable. Marcel, I never expected you'd plot against me. From the first female celebrity, I was already walking into your trap, and now I can't get out. You couldn't control your own boundaries. Who else is there to blame? It's because you've been plotting all along. Without your schemes, Chloe and I would never have gotten this far. The gardenias outside were blooming. I took a walk and didn't hear the rest of their conversation. I have no idea what Marcel said to him. For the next few days, Pablo didn't appear before me. However, I did have a few encounters with Melissa. Sister, can I talk to you? She kept her head down as she spoke, her voice soft. It was hard to associate her with the person who had been leaving negative comments about me using hired accounts on the company's official social media. Melissa kept her head lowered, her fingers nervously twisting together. After a long silence, just as I was about to leave, she finally spoke. I'm pregnant. I took a sip of coffee and responded, what exactly are you trying to say? The child in your belly isn't mine, right? Melissa looked up in shock. The child is Mr. Kim's. But he doesn't want it. Can you help me persuade him? I'm willing to give up everything. I'll return all the gifts he gave me. Just let me keep the baby. You're looking for the wrong person. I have no reason to go talk to him about this. And don't pretend to be someone you're not in front of me. Clearly, you know the answer. The child is more important to you than the things Pablo gave you. Suddenly, Melissa knelt on the floor. But now, he only has you in his heart. If it weren't for you, he might have let me keep the child. His friends say I'm the exception, that only I can get him to marry me. He even gave me a ring, which means he was serious about marrying me. Pablo had a lot of exceptions. Many people had once received his exceptions. Melissa, except for that pink diamond, which might be worth something. If I'm not mistaken, many others have received identical rings from him. Melissa couldn't believe it. That's impossible. You're lying. Everyone says I've been by his side the longest. You must be lying. Did Pablo ever promise you that this ring was only for you? Melissa opened her mouth but realized she couldn't argue. Look, he's not even willing to deal with you. Melissa wanted to say more, but I interrupted her. Melissa, I hope you never show up in front of me again, nor come to the company, because we really aren't familiar with each other. Assistant, show her out. After the assistant escorted her out, she knocked and entered. "Miss Moo, don't listen to Melissa's nonsense. The child in her belly isn't Mr. Kim's. My friend told me that after she was sidelined by the company. She has been trying all sorts of ways to get a contract with the company again. You probably know what methods she's been using." I looked up at the assistant. "You continue following up on the East District project. As for irrelevant matters, don't report them to me." Chapter 7. On the day of the wedding, the weather was perfect, with a gentle breeze and warm sunshine. All our friends from our social circle were in attendance. "Congratulations. I really thought you'd end up marrying Pablo. But who would have guessed? Today is Chloe's wedding day. What are you talking nonsense for? I think Marcel is 100 times better than that Pablo." Helen had never liked Pablo, and on such an important day as this, she didn't want to hear anyone mention his name. My bad. I shouldn't have said that. I just smiled and didn't mind. "Go take a seat. The ceremony is about to start." The wedding venue was decorated in a traditional Chinese style, grand and solemn. The wedding dress was specially commissioned by Marcel, a luxurious gown embroidered with golden phoenixes. On my head was a phoenix crown, with golden tassels hanging on both sides, and the phoenix coronet and ceremonial robe draped over my shoulders. Two families united in marriage, a bond sealed in this hall, a blessed union, a perfect match. After the ceremony, I changed into a dress for toasting. Kevin handed me the Buddhist prayer beads that Pablo had fetched from the mountain top. Pablo is full of regrets now. If he could do it all over again, he said he would definitely cherish you properly. Kevin kept on babbling, unnoticed by him. Marcel's expression turned grim. I smiled and separated the two. After a busy day, I lay down on the bed as soon as we got home, and Marcel helped me out of my clothes. In the bathroom, my back pressed against the cool wall. The steam blurred the gaze between Marcel and me. He hooked his arm around my waist, and before I could react, his kisses were already falling like rain.